Welcome back. Hour number 2, Kentucky Sports Radio, 502-571-1080. A-Vision Glass text machine, 772-774-5254. All week, we've been doing Book a Guest Week, and it is not an exaggeration to say when I put out this challenge to the listeners of Let's Book a Guest, nobody came up as somebody people wanted to hear from more than this guy, comedian Bert Kreischer. Bert, thank you very much for taking the time.
No, thank you, man. I've been hearing this all week on Twitter.
I know I'd be interested why you think, I mean, you obviously are a very successful comedian, but I think what's interesting about you is clearly fans feel a connection to you, because the whole point of this is I want people to help me book people we don't normally have on the show, but that they really want to hear. And it seems like people felt like if they reached out to you, you would say yes. And I actually think that's kind of cool. That means that they feel connected to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's also the reason everyone has my home address and my phone number.
Yes, you were quicker to give your phone number to us than most people are. Normally we have to go through steps. You were like, here it is.
I have intimacy problems.
Fair enough. I
am horrible. That. I said I have a stalker right now, and I had to show his picture to my daughters last night at dinner. I was like, listen, ladies, this is what this guy looks like. If you see him by the house, I go, he should be fine. He's never been here. He doesn't know where we live. And my youngest daughter goes, everyone knows where we live, Dad. Everyone.
So you have a stalker. Now, that's got to be, is that scary? I mean, I would assume it is, or is it just he's just weird?
No, he's just weird. It's a guy in a mental, I've had a few stalkers. So, and initially what I did is I just leaned into them and just tried to out-friend them, thinking that I could win them over, and they'd be like, God, Bert drives me nuts. But I had a couple
you thought you could make them think you were weird. I like that strategy.
The first bit of fan mail I ever got was I was on Last Comic Standing 15 years ago, and this girl, her brother had been in a car accident, and she was writing from her brother. She was Miss Georgia or whatever, but she was writing from her brother's hospital bed saying he'd been in a car accident, and that the one thing that cheered him up was my stand-up or whatever. And I replied. I don't remember what I replied, but whatever I replied, she replied with her next email saying, please do not reply to me again. I wish you the best of luck, all success, but please don't reply to us again.
Wow. What a weird response. Well, that's all right. Let me ask you a question. I'm always, when I talk to comedians, I'm always fascinated as what the break was, because that is a job that a lot of times takes a lot of grinding, and then all of a sudden maybe something happens and you get to a new level. For you, what was that sort of moment that made it to where you end up with 3 Netflix specials and kind of one of the hottest comedians around?
I think honestly, I had a little bit of the perfect storm of something happened. What happened was I worked for Travel Channel for 9 years, and I got fired from Travel Channel. Within the same time of getting fired from Travel Channel, my best friend, a comedian named Tom Segura, started publicly fat-shaming me as a joke, aggressively. To the point where I almost had to go to therapy for it, but it was funny, so I couldn't complain. But he said I looked like Gerard Depardieu, and it was horrible. And then, but I started losing weight, and we started doing this weight loss challenge, and then all of a sudden, the day that we are supposed to do weigh-ins on our buddy Joe Rogan's podcast, which is a pretty big podcast, my machine story went viral. I have a story where I got involved with the Russian mafia and robbed a train, and that went viral on Facebook. So one day, all of a sudden, January 3rd or January 2nd, 4.5 years ago, all of a sudden everything changed. I did my next week was in New Jersey, and there was a blizzard, and it sold out. And I remember saying to the audience, why are you here? And they're like, the machine story. And I was like, oh. And they're like, you're going to tell it, right? And I was like, guys, I was thinking about retiring it. They're like, no, you're telling it, brother.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Because everyone, I wasn't. I'd seen your thing, your face on Netflix, but I hadn't watched the special, so wasn't as familiar with you. And everyone wrote me and said, "You got to give him tell the machine story." Blah blah blah. I don't want you to tell the machine story because I actually watched it. It's great, but I do wonder if you're you and people always want to hear the same story. We talk sometimes on this show about groups that have a song that's so huge that they get tired of it. Are you ever tired of that? Or like how does that work when you have something that is so popular that people just want you to repeat it all the time?
You know, I got to be honest with you. I didn't start getting success until I was like 43 or something. So I think because it happened later in life, I'm just so appreciative that anyone wants to come see me, that if they're yelling it at the end of a show and it looks like they want to hear it, I have absolutely no problem telling it. Not like no problem whatsoever. And then when I say it, you know, and say you're in a, like I did, the last show I did was at Constitution Hall. I did 2 shows. It was like 4,000 people each show. And when you say, you know, when I say for me, I go, when I was 22 years old, I got involved with the Russian Mafia. Here's how it happened. And you hear 4,000 people go crazy.
Yeah.
There's whatever part of you is cynical and is done telling that story in your head, like I'm an artist, I need to move on. The second you hear 4,000 people cheer for something that really happened to you and a story that you worked on for like 4 years to make good, there you feel like a sense of like, yeah, I have no problem telling it. That's when I have my drink on stage. I bring a double Tito's and soda with me. And the second I start telling my story, I get to, like, I've already done an hour's worth of new material, whatever. Every time I tour, I bring whatever I didn't, like all new stuff from the specials. And then at the end, I tell whatever stories people want to hear. And stories are a little different than bits in that, you know, you change them up when you tell them. You never tell the story the same way. So I kind of add stuff and I take stuff out and I throw in a new joke I've been working on every now and then. And I splice in parts of other stories. Like I'll tell other stories in there. And so I really don't get tired of it. I know it sounds crazy, but not to like, but like as a fan, like I'm a big Ron White fan, okay? And his story of tater salad is one of the best, I think maybe the best story ever told, in my opinion. If you told me, if we were at the Comedy Store and we were all backstage and Ron's going on stage, and if he just said, right before he walked out the door, I'm telling tater salad, every single one of us have heard that story, would sprint out of that room and run back and find seats in the showroom to hear him tell it one more time. That's the way stories are, I think, in my opinion.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I always hate when something people love that the person who does it gets tired of it. Glad to hear that hadn't happened with you. I want to ask you about your background for a second because,
sure.
You know, I read the Rolling Stone story about you from college last night because I saw that in 1997 you went to Florida State, and at the time Florida State was named the #1 party school in America, and Rolling Stone came and did a story and said, this is the #1 party school in America, and here is the biggest partier at the school, and it was you. And you were all of a sudden in Rolling Stone at a time, by the way, when Rolling Stone was Rolling Stone, right? Like it was a thing that people really followed. What was that like? Because you were an anonymous kid at that point outside of that campus. What was that like when all of a sudden your life is in Rolling Stone?
It was like, it was like, I say this only because fame is so common these days. You know, with people getting viral videos and whatnot, it was like pure uncut fame. Like when fame was something that seemed totally unattainable.
Yes.
Because immediately, like, news crews and TV shows and radio shows were calling and showing up at my front door. And I was like the kid on campus where people were staring at you walking around. It was so bizarre that all of a sudden it made me feel like anything was possible. It was like it was really intoxicating, like really intoxicating.
Well, you say in that article, Bert, you say in that article that you want to be a stand-up comedian, but you don't know how to do it. I found that fascinating because at the time you had no idea that your life would be what it is.
Yeah. I said I wanted to do stand-up, and some radio show put up a stand-up show. And like I said, I was so just kind of intoxicated with like the idea that things had changed, and all of a sudden I was getting opportunities, and I just went up, did 30 minutes, and crushed, and then just was like, I'm moving to New York. Like it was really. I used to try to walk away from it and distance myself from it, and then one day I just realized it's a really cool footnote to have in your life to go. In college, I was the #1 party animal in the country,
And then I read.
But the coolest part is I don't ever look back at college going like, man, I would love to go back. I walked away like Jim Brown going, I did it right. All right, time to move on.
Well, my co-host Drew Franklin, I think, did college that way as well and is a big fan of yours, Drew. So I always, during these interviews, Bert, I let my two co-hosts each do a question. So, Drew, you're up to bat. What do you got?
Bert, I'm a big fan of yours. Tom, who you already mentioned, Nate Bargatze. A lot of people I've found through Netflix who I've then gone out and seen in person by way of finding them on Netflix. And I'm just wondering what that Netflix bump has done for comedians, because Netflix has really embraced stand-up comedy, and as you know, sometimes I'll log in and it'll just throw you right in our faces. I just wondering how you credit what Netflix has done for your rise to where you are now, because it's done a lot for, I think, stand-up comedy overall.
Oh, it was a game changer. It was a real game changer because it takes you on a local level where you were doing clubs and selling out clubs and then puts you into theaters and then puts you in theaters all around the world. Like my European and Australian tour sold out before anything else. And then all of a sudden you're in theaters and you're in a tour bus, and it's a game changer, man. It's like, I wouldn't say this to Netflix, but I do these specials for free. My last one dropped right when the quarantine kicked in. And, it's the silver lining for me in this quarantine was, I got to deliver some comedy when comedy was like most useful to people. So, it is a legit. There's never been anything like it in our business of comedy. And Bill Burr was the first one that told me that. He called me up. I go, "What's up?" And he's like, "I'm in Mumbai, bro. I'm in Mumbai. They know who I am in Mumbai. I'm the only redhead in Mumbai."
I like that. Your Netflix special did come out right as Corona started. I not nearly on your level, but I released a book, and it came out right as the coronavirus started. And at first I was really bummed because I was like, I don't get to do any of the publicity. I had all this stuff lined up. It all went away because nobody cares about that now. They're focused on the virus. And then all of a sudden I found that people – maybe it was harder to buy, but they were reading it so much more because they had time. And I it was really like, oh, maybe this ended up working out. Did you feel that way about your special?
Bro, Matt, let me tell you something. I have never felt more about that in my life. That is the day my special came out. I had everything planned out. I'm a big marketing guy. Like a lot of people may know, I put out dance videos when my tour starts. I do shirtless videos in my pool. I hire a marching band to promote things. Like, I'm a big promotion guy. So I had a full week planned out, just shy of doing the halftime show at the XFL game for the Los Angeles Wildcats. Like, I had everything planned out. And the day my special came out, they locked down the entire country. And I woke up and I felt castrated. I literally was like, it was St. Patty's Day. And I was like, I guess I'll just make a brisket. Dude, it killed me. And I'm sure you had the exact same feeling, but I was like, you know what, man, don't make this about you. There's bigger things out there. If your special stinks because you can't promote it, then don't worry about it, man. Your family's safe, you're safe, your parents are safe. This is the right thing to do, and that's okay. That happens. And then, like I know you have a New York Times bestseller, all of a sudden, man, it's when people want to get their minds off stuff is that moment, and it's like a silver lining where you're like, where all of a sudden it was like record numbers at Netflix, and they're like, this is one of the biggest specials we've ever put out, and you're like, not because I'm funny, but just because people are in their house.
Yeah, it was sort of like a blessing in disguise just on that. I mean, it's terrible what the country's going through, but at first you go, oh well, bummed out, and then you realize, well, this is more people have many more problems than this, but people ended up consuming it, and I ended up watching yours, and I don't watch a ton of specials, and I was like, oh, that's really good. Now, you're a guy who travels a lot. Has it been weird being sort of stuck in your house this whole time?
Yeah, it's been really weird. I've never spent this much time with my kids in my adult life, ever. I've never spent this much time sober. I'm not drinking. So I'm just sitting here. Yeah, because it just felt weird. The first night I opened a bottle of Jack at dinner, and I was like, wow, this seems like odd. Like, I'm the only one drinking Jack. I was like, maybe I'll just try to give my liver a break for a month and then hit it hard when I go back out on tour.
All right, well, Bert, last question. My co-host shares one thing in common with you. When we go out and do shows, live radio shows, he's big on shirt off. He is in many ways, you all have a lot in common, even though he's not a comedian, but you guys have a lot in common. So I always give him the final word. Ryan, what do you got?
Yeah, Bert, when people found out you were coming on the show, I was flooded with tweets that, like, you and I are kindred spirits. Like, we have these beautifully sculpted dad bods that we love to show off. You know, I rip my shirt off when University of Kentucky wins a game or something. You seem to rip your shirt off when the wind changes. So I'm thinking about maybe following your lead, and when I go to Kroger today, I may just rip my shirt off. I mean, is that your advice maybe you're giving to me? Just be free and show off our dad bods everywhere we go, because it seems like that's what you do all the time.
You can shift the energy of a room with a shirt getting ripped off. I did it, dude. I did it. I got in trouble. I did it at the Knicks game. They had the Jumbotron, and they brought the camera around, and I passed the beer around. I go, everyone fill it up to the top. They get to me, and they're like, comedian Bert Kreischer. Rip my shirt off, kill a beer. Dude, the greatest feeling is Madison Square Garden. Dude ripped his shirt off. They didn't even know who I was. They were like, yeah!
That's kind of what Ryan does. When we do live radio shows, if the energy's down, I just whisper to Ryan, shirt off. And he does, and you're right, it changes the whole energy in the place.
Bro, it's a statement. Listen, the truth is, when you take your shirt off, you're saying something. And it's different statements. Like, say you get pulled over and you're talking to a cop. If you take your shirt off in front of a cop, that cop knows you just said something and things have changed.
Life lessons learned right here from Bert Kreischer.
Well, Bert,
that's a great video. I'm going to shoot that video of what you say when your shirt comes off.
There's a great one. You need to look up Ryan Lemon when you're done and see his. He has videos online. He's got some great ones like you. Bert, thank you very much for coming on. Really, not only nice of you to come on, but I really like how you responded to and reacted to all the folks asking you to come on. Probably the coolest response of anybody that our fans asked, and I really want to thank you for that. And you got a Netflix special, Hey Big Boy is the new one, and there's 2 other ones as well. We really appreciate it.
Hey, you got my phone number. Anytime. Call me anytime. I'll pick up. I got you saved here. We're good, man. Thank you very much. That was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the fans.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.